full and undivided attention. It is in everyone's interest that the government not be distracted in any way from doing what is necessary to protect public health and our efforts to rebuild our society and our economy. Given the events of the last few days, and in fact the last few weeks, in regards to Catherine Pone's appointment and everything that's unfolded since, if this is the case, do you not think that the Taoiseach and indeed Minister Coveney should be given the same treatment? And if not, what is different? And will you be asking them to consider their positions?
Why don't you read out the previous 20 paragraphs of my statement back in July? I think you should. I don't mean that in any disparaging way. I just think it's important that if you're putting questions... No, I think if you read my statement, and I'll come back to it, I'll read it myself now, on the 14th of July 2020, because I was very clear as to the core issue. For a decision I had to take, which I didn't like taking, didn't want to take, I had appointed Barry Cowan, a good time for Barry Cowan, and I made it very clear that Deputy Cowan went into the Dáil initially, and he was very remorseful about that, and I accepted that. And there was allegations emerged, and I said in my statement he was equally clear and emphatic that one detail of the allegation he was being presented with was completely untrue, namely that he sought to evade Gardaí at that time. I put that into the statement at the time. We had extensive discussions on this point last evening and again this morning. This is my statement now of July, which you've quoted from, or just one section of it, of which you've quoted, when he shared with me for the first time the actual Garda record on the dispute. And following these discussions and having seen the Garda report this morning, it was my view that it raised additional issues requiring further explanation and clarification. I made this view clear to him and gave him space today to consider the matter further. However, he has decided that he is not prepared to address this allegation publicly and will not make any further statement or answer any questions on this issue in the House. This decision has created a situation where legitimate doubts and additional questions are being raised. Government colleagues are expected to address these. Indeed, I had been in the Dáil addressing the issue prior to this, and I made the point that I said this is simply untenable. It is my view that Deputy Cowan had an obligation to come before the House. And then I did go on to say that it's also my view that this issue is damaging to the ongoing work of the government. But let's be very clear. Everybody knows here, because I stated it unequivocally at the time, why I had to take that very, in my view, a regrettable decision to have to take. No one wants to be in a position like this. But I made it very clear, because Deputy Cowan Barry Cowan had shared the content of the Pulse record with me on the basis that I would respect the privacy of that. And also in relation... and had a discussion with him as well in terms of his own explanation in terms of what transpired. And I simply said, you need to go into the House and you need to give the full, transparent story in relation to it. And he refused to do that. Now, I'd asked him as Taoiseach to do that, and as Minister he refused, and I was left with no alternative, sadly, but to take the decision that I took on that occasion. And I don't think that the situations are comparable. Minister Coveney has already written to the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee saying he's going to go before the Foreign Affairs Committee, wants to go before it again, to fully address any issues that still arise or need to be addressed, or any queries that the members of that committee have in relation to the appointment of Catherine Zapone, which hasn't gone ahead, and he's prepared to do that. And I think he's not going to do that. He's prepared to give a very comprehensive presentation to that committee again, and take any questions that he has to answer. So, but you take I think it's very important, though, that I was surprised now early this morning and listening to the debate that somehow people have forgotten the core part, the core reason behind the decision I had to take on that occasion. The fact that something is a distraction on its own doesn't merit any action of the sort that you're suggesting. And I would put it this way to you as well. As Taoiseach, we have set out very substantive items that we need to address as a society. We've dealt with one of them today now. When I say we've dealt with it, we've produced a very comprehensive housing for all. That matters to people out there, outside of the bubble of Leinster House. Matters very much to them. 2 days ago, we produced a very comprehensive programme in relation to reopening our society, having come through a pandemic, a 100-year event, which shook to the very core our certainties about life and about society. today there's very good statistics emerging in terms of the economic recovery. That didn't happen by accident. It's happening because there's a government that's working well and doing things effectively on the big issues that matter to people. Economic recovery is happening right now in terms of economic growth, in terms of employment coming down, in terms of the deficit now not likely to be as high as we might have anticipated. I mean, this is because government took very significant action. And I think we need balance and perspective here. The idea that, and I think we do need to be accountable. It's accepted that the appointment of Catherine Zappone was not handled in the correct way, that the three-party leaders should have been notified. That is accepted. And that it is also accepted that was wrong. And Minister Coveney apologised to me for that and has said that. But let's have some balance and perspective in terms of the big issues that this country is facing. I'm very clear about this. And I think there's a bit of melodrama and over-dramatics about it, if I'm frank. That's where I personally come to this issue from. And we now have the National Development Plan to do. We now have the Climate Action Plan to do. We have a budget to do. And I'm going to keep focused on those issues. Government is working in good faith together. The three leaders are working in good faith together. That's the way I see it. I fully accept other people have a different perspective on that. But within myself, I'm comfortable about this and the actions I've taken.